all for joining the new Credential Finder, an example of what is possible. My name is Scarlett Jekyll. I am the Credential Engine Accounts and Publishing Coordinator. I work with all of you pretty frequently for publishing to the registry, so I know how exciting this update is. So just quickly, we are using a bigger platform today for a webinar function, so please feel free to use the chat for any questions, comments, or feedback. And then there's also a Q&A function that you will find at the bottom of your screen below the screen share. So if you have any questions that come up during our presentation today, please feel free to use either the chat or that Q&A function. We'll be monitoring both of those if you have any questions. And we will be recording, so this will be made available to you afterwards and on YouTube. Nate, if you want to go ahead and go to our next slides.
So again, welcome everyone. Jeannie Kitchen, CTSO with Credential Engine. I'm going to do a very short PowerPoint, and then we're going to jump into a live demo of the new Credential Finder. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the next slide. Nate, thanks. And one more, and let's talk about the new Finder. So it's really important for everyone to know that the Credential Finder is a tool for seeing all of the data published to the registry. We don't think anybody else really wants to build a tool that does specifically that. The data in the registry is available to power an open applications marketplace, and we mean that anyone can build tools or systems and use that data for their systems. But the Finder really has one job to do, and that is to show all of the data in the registry. And a couple of additional things to know is that as new data arrives in the registry, which happens very frequently, you'll see it in the Finder soon after it's published. All the data that you see in the Credential Finder is based on a minimum data policy. So you'll notice there's a wide variety of how much or little information there is, but it's always based on that minimum data policy. And when you look at the Finder, you're going to see what's currently being published, and we'll take a look at that with the demo. But I wanted to mention that we also anticipate that users will begin publishing, basically linking learning to work by relating the types of information like credentials to things like jobs, occupation, work roles, and tasks. And we're looking forward to that. And finally, if you're curious and you want to see what the data in the registry looks like, the Credential Finder also supports that. There's a little icon on the bottom of each page that will show you, and you can actually see the raw metadata in the registry. So we did a complete redesign. We hope you like it. I think it looks really clean. The goal of the design was not to drastically change it. And as I already stated, it's for a tool for seeing all the data in the registry. So clearly it's still going to do that. But really what we wanted to do was organize the information in consistent patterns to be more meaningful to users, and to use a landing page to provide more information. You may recall, if you're familiar with the current Credential Finder, you just go straight to a search. So we're going to give a little context for users as well. And so we did follow a design process. We worked with a professional designer to help us out back at the end of 2020. And that designer worked with a broad range of our customers and did some iterative through a feedback process, tweaked the design, and then we utilized that graphical design in spring, summer of this year, and the development team rebuilt Finder pretty much from the ground up. We developed a new API that could be beneficial to others as well, to provide the credential data as content. And we implemented the whole new look and feel that you're about to see. And we also did some tweaks to the Credential Finder search. And for those of you who are used to the current Finder, well, we're all going to have to think a bit differently about the UI. It is very different. The prior version was 3 columns, and we really had them organized by CTDL language, by classes and properties. And so there were a lot of these blue buttons all stacked up. And basically, the new version does not do that anymore. It's really, again, it's meant to be a little more user-friendly. And so it's more user interface driven, more content driven instead of CTDL classes and property centric. Although obviously everything that shows in the Credential Finder is the CTDL and data in the registry. So you're going to see quite a few differences, and you'll get to experience that in just a moment. There's a number of benefits to this redesign as well. We included a main menu. So for example, you'll be able to use a main menu for any of your searches. And if you wanted to search a URL directly to that specific search, you'll be able to do that. The compare feature was always in the Credential Finder, but it was a little hard for people to find. It used to be at the bottom of the page. Now it's more like a shopping cart that people are used to, and you'll see that in a moment. The geographic searches have been greatly improved. You'll see when we do the demo that you'll be able to search in a geographic area. And because some of the pages have a lot of data, and we're going to show you a couple, some of the pages were slow to load. We've addressed that as well. And I think I've already mentioned, we tweaked the search, and the API that supplies the content to the Finder can be used for other custom applications as well. We can explore that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And let's show it. Nate, why don't you go ahead and pull the new Credential Finder up? Drum roll, please. Thanks, Nate. You are seeing the new homepage of the Credential Finder. I want to point out that there's a menu at the top, and Nate can kind of just roll his mouse over that menu at the top there. And you're going to see, I just mentioned that search, Nate. If you go back over to the search menu, you can see that you could use the menu to go to any of the searches. You could also initiate a search directly from the home page. You can see there's the searches there, and you can initiate a search right there. And we'll do that in just a moment. Yep, but let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Here's one of a cool new thing on this homepage. The what's in the registry is literally counts of data in the registry, and it will change if something is published while we're talking today. Those counts are going to change, so we can get a good idea of the data in the registry. And then below that, we can learn about the registry and how the Finder helps you to understand the value and benefit of the data in the credential registry. So you can see below that, the who is the Credential Finder for. Nate can, is a slider for various audiences. And Nate can click on, there you go. You can go ahead and rotate it, and we can see a message for various audiences that leads to utilizing the Finder to understand the value of the data in the registry. Below that is a little bit more information about the data in the credential registry. And then below that is a typical footer with links back to the main Credential Engine site and technical site. And we don't need to spend much time down there. Let's go back up to the top and let's do a search, Nate. And we're going to start off doing an organization search. So these would be credentialing organizations or quality assurance organizations that have been published to the registry. And Nate, you're going to go ahead and do a search in Indiana. So this is a new feature here. We can search in a geographic area. So let's go ahead and do that search, Nate. There you go. And it is going to show you all of the organizations published to the registry. And I'm going to ask Nate to go ahead and select a filter. So you'll notice the filter is in a different location, but the filters, just like with the existing Finder, are all CTDL terms that enable comparison and filtering. And so just for this, let's go ahead and let's do a filter on two-year college. So let's take a look at two-year colleges that are located in Indiana. And then let's just go ahead and move that filter out of the way. There we go. And let's take a look at the new results list. Nice and clean looking. If the organization included a URL to their logo, that will share. That will show. We can see the name of the organization, Off to the right, we can see that we still have that compare feature, and we'll demonstrate that with a credential in just a moment. But we can also see that if information is published with one or more locations, all that location information is there just below the compare buttons. And we have a new look and feel for what we used to call the gray buttons. The gray buttons are, now we call them pills. And the reason for that is because of the shape of them. And you'll notice that each one has a little icon representing whatever topic they're covering. You can click them to expand them. It'll show some of the information, and you'll be able to see if there's a lot of information, it will direct you to the detail page to take a look at that information. But the pills are really helpful because they give you a good idea of how much data has been published to the registry and how much beyond the minimum data policy has been published. So if you see pills there, it's a good clue that there's some robust information in the registry. And why don't we go ahead and click on Ivy Tech College of Indiana, and let's take a look at the new detail page. So completely different look here on the detail page, and we're going to kind of walk down it. We're going to walk down the left side of the page, and then we'll go back up the right side of the page. You can see again that we can select to compare. We'll do that with a credential. We won't select that now. But if we start to go down the left side of the page, Nate, we can see that there's information about the organization. And what we're going to see on these detail pages, much like the pills that you just saw with the search, is there's going to be a consistent use of colors. Whenever you see the button look on the left-hand side, that's that kind of dark blue with an icon for a link going off of it, that's going to be an external link to the information published by the publisher. And then below that, we can begin to see some additional pills. And if Nate hovers over those are organization types that are CTDL. We can see they're interactive and they have a little search magnifying glass. That means you can search them. And so if you were to click any, which he's not right now, but if you were to click it, it would actually do a search for whatever you clicked on and bring up all of the organizations that publish that specific type of organization. Below that, we can see connections. This is really important because these organizations are publishing, credentials, learning opportunities, assessments, pathways, and competencies, and so forth. And if we were to click here, which we're not right now, but if we did, it would do a search only for those things. So you would see, for example, all of the credentials that Ivy Tech has published to the registry. And then moving on down below that, we have sectors and industries. And again, we're seeing the use of those icons. There's a little search filter. They're interactive, and that tells us that they're all searchable. So if Nate moves down under sectors and industries and moves his mouse over those, we can see that, again, these are all CTDL terms, and we can search on them. And then below that is additional information. And it neatly organizes a lot of information that right now is just pushed down the bottom of the current page and all kind of lumped together. So we could see it's kind of broken out by identifiers, including the CTID. The CTID is really important because it's that unique global identifier in the registry. And now you don't have to hunt for it. It's right there. Below that, we can see there's some dates, so we can know when information, for example, has been published and updated. And below that, on every detail page, you're going to see this little icon. And Nate, go ahead and click that. This is a way for you to see the actual raw metadata in the registry. So it's pretty cool. You can click on it. You don't have to really know a lot about code to look at it, because what you will see is it is a human and machine readable. And so you're going to see the CTDL terms, and then you're going to see the actual data. So it's something neat to check out if you haven't done that yet. And let's go ahead and close that modal window out. Oh, and it's a good opportunity for me to mention here as we go up the right-hand side of the page where we see process. So there are some additional information that Ivy Tech has published, and you'll notice there are these rectangles with a transparent background, and that's always going to open a modal window. So those are always going to be modal windows. So we've got the pills on the search that have a common function. We have those the search pills on the detail page that always do the same thing, that predictability. And these are always going to be a modal window. So thanks for opening that modal window up Nate. Then above the processes, we can see they published information about jurisdiction. We can see that they've published information, including their social media. And when you see those social media icons, it means you can go directly to their social media page. And we can also go on up and see locations. And I think this is interesting because there's a lot of locations. So Nate, if you could expand that at the bottom there. Whenever there's a lot of information, rather than having really, really, really long web pages, what it will do is it will default to show a specific number of items and always show you that arrow to expand and open that up. And you can see one of the unique things about this organization is they have a lot of locations and they've published them, and you can see all of them there. And then you can see them on the map. So as Nate is clicking them, the map is changing to show the location of that specific Ivy Tech campus located somewhere in the state of Indiana. And we can go up above the location information, and we could see information about third-party quality assurance. And again, we're going to know that's a modal window every time, and we can take a look at that information as well. So that's a great example of an organization, but Nate has one more example up. Nate, can you go ahead and click on that? We wanted to show, again, from organization or credential to credential, it's always going to be different because it's based on whatever that organization published to the registry, always following that minimum data policy. It's always a CTDL. But this example, NOCTI, they publish a lot of information. And so this will give you, Nate will just kind of scroll down again, the left side, you're going to see the data is always organized in the same manner. So it's always going to be in the same order if they published it. If they didn't publish it, it won't show. So you can see it looks familiar on the left-hand side there. And then on the right-hand side, we could see that NOCTI has published in CTDL what are called process profiles. And so they're really describing all of their processes for how they develop their credentials and how they maintain them. And he's going to randomly pick one. We don't have to click on all of them. We know it's going to be a modal window. And we can see all of the information that NOCTI has published about their administration process. So if you really want to learn about the NOCTI organization and how they manage their credentials, this is super helpful. And you can go ahead and close that window, Nate. Thanks for showing that. And we'll just kind of slowly scroll up, and you're going to see the same order of the presentation is consistent. Again, it's dependent on what NOCTI published. So we can see the locations, and we can go on up, and we can see quality assurance performed. And it's, again, that modal window. So we always know it's going to be a modal window that's going to open up and present all that information. So that provides a good overview of the changes for organizations. So Nate, let's take a look at some credentials. Let's go back to the search. And let's select credentials. And of note, we could have done that from the top menu as well. It doesn't really matter. It gets us to the same place. So we'll just stay right there. And for our search, let's do a search for nurse. And we can see that it autofills. So if you did want to select something very specific, you could have, but you don't have to. It's just going to search for everything with nurse in the title or description. And I think keywords as well. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the filters. And let's go ahead and you can see the filters are all still here. If you know the current Finder, we don't have time to go through every filter, but in other filters, there's one for has outcome data. And so let's go ahead and pick has outcome data. And then let's move those filters out of the way. There we go. And let's take a look at what the credential results look like. And again, you're going to see very consistent pattern here. Our results are going to have that similar, look and feel, always using that same concept of the pills. The pills always showing the additional information, above the minimum data policy, for example, that's been published. If Nate were to click on any of them, they're going to expand and give you more information. Those pills that have a lot of information are going to direct you to the detail page. And I'm going to ask Nate to go ahead and pick two credentials to compare. So just go ahead and pick two credentials. And then since we were talking about Indiana, let's go back up and take a look at that Ivy Tech. Somewhere up there at the top, Nate, I saw an Ivy Tech credential. Let's take a look at there it is, AS in nursing. Let's take a look at that one. And once that page loads, Nate, let's go ahead and select compare. So see, we can click compare on this page, and now we're going to compare 3 credentials. We could pick more, but we're going to go ahead and just stick with 3. We'll show that in a moment. But let's go ahead and walk through the credential page. So we're going to see similar, look and feel. The whole idea is the main information about the thing being described. In this case, the credential is at the top left. The dark colored, very dark blue buttons with the icon indicate you're going to an external website. The buttons that are just an outline but are not dark blue are always going to be a modal. So Nate, let's click on the outcome data since we filtered on that. Let's take a look. So organizations can publish outcome data, for example, and it's all aggregate outcome data, by the way. There's no personal information in the registry. But Ivy Tech or the Indiana Board of Nursing has published the passing rates for Indiana nursing programs. So that's what we're seeing here. And they did it over a 3-year period. So we're looking at this modal window and we're seeing the pass rates that were published that are related specifically to this credential. And Nate is highlighting the tabs here, which happen to be the periods of time for which those pass rates are applicable. And if he clicks on any of them, it's going to display the data, the outcome data for that period. So that's really, really nifty. Thanks for showing that, Nate. And let's just go ahead and close that modal. And let's take a look at the other information on the page. So below those modals, we can see credential type and other information. Sorry, Nate, scroll up just a little bit. We just passed all that, the icons, the search icons. Yeah, so we're always going to have that same order of information. And again, it's all dependent on what organizations publish. So in this case, we can see the type, the status, and so forth. And we see those, Nate, move your mouse over any of those little icons there because they're interactive. We can search. And then we can go on down and we can see that they have published requirements. And they're in that rectangle, so we know it's going to be a modal window. So Nate will go ahead. The cost information is really nifty in this one too, so let's show that as well. But yeah, let's take a look at that. So the cost information is published, and again, this is all CTDL, and so we can see how much detail can be expressed if the organization chooses to do so and break out those costs. So in this case, they have done so, and we can see some great detail here in this modal. And by the way, those dark blue buttons there with the external link icon, we all know that means it's going to link out to the website with that information. We can go ahead and close that modal. Thank you. And below requirements, costs, and time, we can also see there's time to complete there. So let me just point that out. And then we can see subjects and keywords. And again, we're seeing the icons. They have a little search on them. That means if Nate rolls his mouse over them, they are going to be searchable. So if you can search those. And then we see the additional information. So that same pattern, of course, organization is very different from credential information, but we're going to see that same pattern. We're at the bottom left of every page. That's where the additional information will go. Well, actually, Nate, you know what? I shouldn't have said that because there's a couple pages that are slightly different. We'll show those in just a moment. But this is a typical setup, very predictable. We're going to have identifiers, we're CICTID, we're going to see some important dates there. And if you want to see that data in the registry, you're always going to see that icon that you can click and you can take a look at that raw metadata. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a trip up the right side of the page from the bottom there. We can see that there's been some occupations and industries for which this particular credential preparer people for identified. Again, we can see that's all searchable. And so that would bring you back to the main search to search for whatever it is that you click on. So you would get back any credentials, for example, that prepare for one of those occupations if you were to click that. And we could see that they have published some information on quality assurance that they receive, and you can see that those are modal windows. And then above that, why don't we take a look at the competencies? And so with this credential, they have published, Nate did the quality assurance, so we could see the quality assurance there. And there's the competencies. So we could see that they have also published competencies with this credential. And again, we knew it was going to be a modal window, but we're going to see all that detail in there of what was published using the CTDL. And we can go ahead and close that window. And we could see above it additional connection information. And we can take a look at the information that's been published. And again, all of this information has been published to the registry, and the job of the finder is to display all of it. So thank you for sharing that, Nate. We can go ahead and close that. And I want to point out the related organizations because you're always going to see an owned by and offered by. And sometimes things can be offered by more than one organization. In this case, you know, this is a degree and it is offered by Ivy Tech. And where you see the link to Ivy Tech there, that would bring us back to that organization page, which we've already looked at. So let's take a look at the compare. So Nate picked 3 credentials to compare. And as I mentioned, it's now more shopping cartish at the top right corner. And he can go ahead and open up that compare page. He could have added more. I want to point out that another new nice little thing here is at the top of this page, you can print, you can download, and it would download as a CSV file because you can see it's a subset of the information that shows in the comparison. And you can also share, and that would be a URL that you could, you know, email or text or whatever, send to someone. So that's new. And you can see Nate has compared credentials. And so the little menu on the top has defaulted to credentials. We recall we could have compared organizations, and we can compare other things. In this case, we're only comparing credentials. He's opening up the panels. So we can compare the information about each of these credentials. And again, that can be downloaded, printed, and so forth. So that is the new compare in the top right corner. And we can go ahead and move on from that, but we can also clear it. You may have noticed that when Nate clicked on that top right corner with that shopping cartish like experience, that he can X out and remove. And you probably noticed that too while he was doing filters, that the filters show at the top of the search and you can just clear them out. So that's what we wanted to show with a compare. Now, let's take a look at a competency framework. So in this particular case, let's search on 21st century skills. It's defaulted, by the way, to all of the competency frameworks showing in the registry, and it's going to default to most recently published. So no matter what you're searching, the default is going to be everything that's been published, and it's going to be the most recently published showing first, but you can change that sort if you want. There is a drop down to change the sort as well, and we don't need to do that right now, but it's right there and you can check that out. And I also want to note, since Nate's up there looking at the sort order, that we've been looking at the list view. You see the list box there, but you can also look at a map view. And that's currently with the existing Finder as well, but some improvements have been made to the map view as well, and how that, what that looks like, and how the whatever it is that you selected show on the map. And we want to go to the Education and Design Lab 21st Century Skills. But noticing all those pills are there with some additional information, and they interact just like the other pills that we were looking at. Nate's gone back to give you to show you the pills there in the search. They're all interactive. And of course, to see all the information in the pills, you're going to go to the detail page. So he's done that. And this is a competency framework published to the registry by Education Design Labs. And this is a really great one that I wanted to show because it has a lot of information. Because again, we're showing everything published to the registry. You'll notice on the left-hand side there, there's a tab menu. Because competency frameworks are going to be a bit different from credentials or organizations or learning opportunities. We have to do a little bit different display. And so adjacent to the list of competencies, you can see details, you can see connections and concept schemes. And I want to first go back to the competency tab. So let's go back to that and let's take a look. And Nate can click show all adjacent to the first couple of competencies, because you can see that in this particular case, the publisher of this framework has published a lot of information, including alignments to another competency framework. And you're seeing all of the competencies they've published and all the alignments as well that are data in the registry. So that's what we're seeing here. But let's go back up to the top of the page there. And if we go to connections, which is the third tab, what we're seeing there are all the connections from credentials and learning opportunities that are offered by Education Design Lab that utilize competencies in that framework. And this will give us an opportunity now to look at a learning opportunity. So Nate, down in the connections where it says reference by learning opportunities, let's go ahead and pick the Be Resilient learning opportunity. And that's going to bring us to the learning opportunity page, which you noticed as Nate was doing the demo is one of the things that you can search for in the drop down. And if Nate were to begin to kind of slowly scroll down the left-hand side, I'm sure you're all saying, yep, we got it. We understand this look and feel now. The left-hand side has the information, it has the little search pills, has additional information at the bottom. You could see that registry data. And then I can go back up the right side there. And here, Nate, I will ask you to stop on the teaches competencies, because this particular learning opportunity is specific to only a specific set of competencies in that big framework. And you can see that that's all linked here. So I also wanted to point this out because one of the really, great things about the registry is it's linking together all of this data. So we could start from the competency framework to get to the learning opportunity, or we could have started here at the learning opportunity to see those competencies. And we can go ahead and close that modal window and scroll up a bit, and we can see that there's some, other connections there. We know what a modal window looks like, and we see the related organizations. And if we were to, click on Education Design Lab, it would bring us to their organization page. We've already looked at one, so we don't need to go ahead and look at that. So let's see how we're doing on time. And I think we're in pretty good shape. So let's look at a couple more things. And also just let me know if any important questions came up that we should answer now. Otherwise, we plan to have time at the end to answer questions. Okay, so Nate, let's take a look at transfer value. So if we go back to the search, and we go to that drop down, either directly from the search or the top menu, either way, it'll bring us to the same place. We can take a look at the transfer value profiles published as a CTDL to the registry. And again, we're seeing that, that display, that nice clean look. We're seeing only pills that are applicable to whatever it is that we're looking at. So that's what we're seeing here. And we can just go ahead and pick any of these transfer value profiles. These were published by ACE. And these profiles are what they communicate from ACE are their transfer value recommendations. In this case, this is a transfer value recommendation for credits, and the credits information is on the left-hand side there. So you can see there's information about the transfer value. You could see the credit recommendations and the level at which those recommendations are applicable made by ACE. Of course, that dark blue button means that we'd be going off to a web page about that. You'll be leaving the Finder. And below that, again, we see that additional information, and the CTID is there. Dates are there, and the registry data is there. So you could look at this transfer profile in the credential registry. Now, this one is interesting because this is a transfer value from a credential, offered by Sophia that is also published to the registry. Below that, before we click on that, which I'll have Nate do in just a moment, we see our icons. And if Nate moves down there over those icons just below Sophia, we could search on those. So again, that would bring you back to the main search. You would be searching for whatever it is that you click on. But now if we follow the link to the course for which ACE is recommending credit value for transfer, we will be directed to the data that Sophia has published to the registry. You can go ahead and click on that, Nate. There we go. So Sophia published the credentials to the registry that ACE has made credit recommendations for. So by clicking that, we're going to the Sophia information that's in the registry. And we've looked at a credential, so we don't have to linger too much on this page. But again, this is a whole new look and feel. If you're used to the existing Finder, it'll probably take you a minute to get used to where to look for things, but once you get there, you're gonna love it. No more stacks of blue boxes on the right-hand side. So that's a great example of linking things in the registry. And do we have time for one more before Q&A?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. So let's go up to the search again, Nate, if you don't mind. And let's go up to the menu and let's just pause there for a moment. We've looked at credential examples, organization. We looked at learning opportunities. We didn't look at an assessment yet. They look a lot like the learning opportunity layout. We looked at competency frameworks. We looked at transfer value. One of the things we didn't look at is pathways. Why don't we take a look at pathways? Right now, there's a very small number published to the registry, but Credential Engine is working on pathway projects with a number of organizations and states. And so just as you can see new things at any given moment in the registry, you can expect to see a lot more pathway information published in the near future. And what pathways are, we can go ahead and click on the French marketable skills. So we're talking about education and career pathways. And in the registry, any organization that has education and career pathways can publish those to the registry. And what this is going to do is link together the components of a pathway. So at the top of the page, you're going to see it looks a lot like the competency framework page. It's a little bit different than all the other pages. And that's because the presentation of the data really calls for that. At the top there, Nate, if you can just kind of roll your mouse over the Explore the Pathway menu there, you can see, you can click on those just like with the competency framework and see additional information. And thanks for doing that. And then let's go back to that page. And then notice below that it says pathway components. So we're seeing a graph view. We're going to go over that momentarily. But the data in the registry can also be viewed as a list. So if he clicks that, we can see this pathway as a list of components. So these would all be all the things. It could be learning opportunities, assessments, jobs, and so forth that comprise an education and career pathway. And we could see a tree view. And registered would mean all of the components that are published to the registry. I'm not sure that there are specific components published to the registry for this one. So let's just go back to the graph. And let's just take a quick look here. If Nate will scroll down, you'll see this is a very different presentation than all of the other pages. What we're seeing here are connections of competencies and credentials and learning opportunities and so forth that lead to a destination. And if Nate clicks on one of those little connectors on the bottom, Nate, if you click on the little icon in that, yeah, click on, then we can follow the graph, so we can follow it back to all the components of that pathway. We'll be doing a little bit more work on this page to make it a little more user-friendly. But the whole idea here is to communicate all the data in the registry and to communicate the pathway as a graphical interface, and meaning that you're seeing those connections of many different components. And you notice as Nate clicked on them how only certain things are highlighting, because their pathways will typically have more than one option to get from a starting point to a destination. So let me go ahead and pause there. And we're doing really well. So let's go ahead and make sure we can answer any questions or show anything in particular that someone would like to revisit.
Kim with Louisiana has asked, how is this marketed to potential students?
What really we want to communicate with this tool is the value of the data in the registry. And certainly anyone can access the Finder. It is online, but we're really not marketing it per se to students directly. We would want you to have a tool that you market to students using the data in the registry. And by the way, there are widgets available. So one of the things you can do with the Finder, and this is on the menu of that homepage there, is you can create a widget of the Finder limited to only what you want to show. So with all that said, my point being that we want to use this as a tool because it's really important for people to understand the value of comparable and transparent credential and other data that links learning to work. And the best way to do that is through a tool. If I tried to just, if all we did was explain it, I think people would just be confused. And so certainly valuable for that. We would encourage you to use it, but we're not going to market it directly to students. So I hope that makes sense. We love questions, so don't be shy. There is no fee to use the Finder. The vast majority of Credential Engine's work is fulfilled in our mission and being providing open tools and resources. So if you offer credentials, learning opportunities, assessments, competency frameworks, pathways, transfer values, you can publish them to the registry at no fee, and people will see those in the Finder. So there is no fee to publish your data to the registry. There is no fee to use this Finder, to utilize it as a tool to communicate the importance of this data to everyone in our communities.
We also got a question in the Q&A box that they were just getting started with publishing. Take to typically have the data added to the registry. I did answer this, but I'll go ahead and speak about it as well. Once your account has been set up and approved to begin publishing, it really just depends on how much data you are planning to publish to the credential registry. We have a pretty minimum data policy for publishing, so you can get that minimum data published pretty quickly. And then I will also be working with you one-on-one closely to ensure that it's as easy as possible and answer any questions so we can get that data into the registry.
If we don't have any questions or any requests to revisit anything that you saw in the new Finder, I think we just have another slide. We can jump back to the slides and we can go ahead and close out.
So what's next is the new Credential Finder will be launching tomorrow, September 16th. It'll be the same URL that you're used to going to when visiting the Credential Finder. If you notice that maybe it hasn't updated, you may need to just refresh your browser, clear your cache. There could be something just kind of stuck in the browser. If you are utilizing one of the Credential Finder widgets, that will also be updated to reflect this new look and feel. And in the next week or so, a new Finder overview page will be available. Eric, our comms director, will be creating that. And then finally, if you do have any comments or feedback on the new Finder, we would love to hear that. And if you could provide that by October 31st.
Well, thanks everyone so much for joining. We appreciate your curiosity and your spending time with us. We're super excited about launching the new Credential Finder tomorrow. And remember, you can, all the tools for publishing to the registry are at no cost. Please feel free to utilize them. Contact us with any questions. We'll get you started on publishing and utilizing the Credential Finder to communicate the importance and value and basically to illuminate credential transparency for everyone in our communities. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.